இப்போ கோ லைவ் ஆக்டிவேட் ஆச்சு. ஆமாங்கங்க. இதுக்கு முன்னாடி வரலங்கங்க. நீங்கள் என்ன பண்ணீங்க? ஓ சரிங்கங்க. ஓகே. ஆ சரி. சரி. ஆ சரிங்கங்க. ஓகேங்க. தேங்க்யூங்க. தேங்க்யூங்க. நீங்கள் என்ன பண்ணீங்க? ஸ்பீக்கர் லெட்ஸ் ஆஃப். ஓ சரிங்கங்க. ஓகே. ஸோ வி ஆர் லைவ் சார். ஆ சரி. ஆ சரி. ஓகே. தேங்க்யூங்க. தேங்க்யூ. To disable the I have just
Okay, I'm doing.
yeah, okay, yeah.
We stop it and restart.
So right now we are live only, sir. So you wanted to open this one for making transition. This we will keep it somewhere here, sir.
Yes.
And then writing things here, sir.
Yes, I think these three windows, if we keep, we are all in good shape.
Yes, sir. Let me just.
We can keep reading the questions from here.
Right, sir.
And transition from here and keep writing here. So in the meantime, let me remove all this from here.
Yes, sir. That's all, sir.
That is all. That
Yes,
is all that is required.
So you want us to schedule to see? Yeah, just a second, sir. Just wait. So this tool will be okay, sir. That one.
This one will be fine. So get that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Just put this there because that will be lower. Just put this and on that.
Right. Yeah, we move it closer so that.
The movements should
No,
not.
I think we need to.
Yeah, that is why you have to get the back and then I can.
Let's adjust the camera
here.
positioning, sir.
We can do that. We can adjust the camera.
So be careful, sir.
Yep. We'll have to adjust the camera.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll not move so much. I'll just hold on. I'm sitting here. It's fine. I have to do some more trick with the camera.
So we are live, sir. Yes, sir. You can start, sir. Yes, sir.
So there is a phase lag between.
Yeah, there will be 15-20 seconds delay, sir. This is the final output, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening, guys. Let's get started. I'm sorry for this delay of about 15 minutes. We were supposed to start at 6:15 and now we are starting at about 6:28 is what the studio clock tells us, 6:30. So there were some technical issues to be resolved, which I hopefully have been resolved. So can I just get a quick signal from one of you to say that yes, you are able to listen, you are able to hear? It's working. Okay, so I'm told that it is working. So well, let's get back to work. Let's get started. It's no back to work. We are just going to let us get to work. So we are into about the 5th or the 6th week. We have done. There is an assignment 5 which is already gone. The 6th week is going on now, right? So we are 6 weeks into this course. I hope you are enjoying it and doing your assignments. So there are some questions which are related specifically to the assignments. So let's see. Let me see what the questions are. There is a question from, I have a offline questions to me first, which says that, is compound interest table allowed for the examination? Now this is coming from Purushottam. My answer to you is that, well, it is not allowed in the sense that you will not be allowed to carry any of the material with you. So whatever is required, it will be part of the question paper. We'll provide you all the details either in the form of a table or that data will be given to you in some way or form. Okay. So I think that is what is the first thing that you should keep in mind, that you are not allowed to bring in any material from your side. Okay. So the second question that I have here is by Shammukh Priya, which says that, sir, I need a clarification regarding resource allocation techniques, resource smoothing and resource leveling. Smoothing is a duration constraint, so we smoothen the demand for resource making, while intelligent utilization of float without changing project duration, whereas in resource leveling it is resource constrained, so the duration of project is extended. If any of two conditioned activities require the same resource, we allocate resource to an activity based on the latest starting time. My doubt is in resource leveling, as resources are constrained, it obviously leads to delay in project and so on and so forth. Now, I do not know how to answer this question to you, Shamukpriya, because there can be a difference in terminologies that we use as far as different books are concerned, different literature is concerned. So the principle is very simple. That's the way I've explained it, and I think I'll just go over that principle for your benefit and for the benefit of others. The principle is that you have a certain amount of resource, a certain resource, manpower, it could be money, it could be equipment, whatever it is. One thing is that you do not want that resource to be sporadically used in your project. What I mean to say is that let me use this trick and see if you will be able to see what I'm writing. For any given resource, let me see, how do I write on the blackboard, on this board here? Oh, I can get it. So for any given resource, I do not want a situation that it is going to be used here and it's going to be used here and it's going to be used here. We don't want this resource to be idling at these points in time. So what leveling means is that if these activities A, B, and C, which require this resource, if they can somehow be done in a manner that A comes here, followed by B, followed by C, then this resource is brought to site and is relieved from site. It is sent back and it is available or used at site only for these durations, and these three activities A, B, and C are completed. Now that's the leveling part of it. That is, you brought the resource, scheduled your activities in a manner that they follow each other so that the resource is not sporadically used. So this obviously requires that as far as time diagram is concerned, that okay, you wanted to schedule A like this, you wanted to put B here, and you wanted to put C here. Now this is what you're doing here, that A will use this resource, then B will use this resource, and then C will use this resource. Whereas what this guy is trying to do is that you're saying that okay, let A use it, then B will use it, followed by C. So this is your time axis. So you are moving your activities around. I mean, you're saying that okay, instead of B being done taken up here with this gap here and C being taken up with this gap here, these gaps, if we are able to remove and have A, B, and C follow each other, then this resource is efficiently used. That is the leveling part of it. Then what we get into is allocation part of it, that okay, if this resource is simply not available for a certain time, and then you try to say that okay, now we'll get this resource as and when it becomes available to other activities. At that time, the duration of the project may be compromised. So in the wider sense, all this discussion, whether it is leveling or it is allocation, can be looked upon under a wider umbrella of what you are calling as resource allocation techniques. One is when you're trying to remove the idling time of these resources by putting them together. And this could be equipment, it could be manpower, it could be a welder is needed here and a welder is needed here and a welder is needed here. So you don't want to put all your welding operations at one place. That will also help your welding equipment and so on. So one is this allocation business, your leveling business, and the other is the allocation. Now, whichever way you want to look at it, once the principle is understood, I think you should be able to handle life as it comes along. Okay. So then let me go to the next question, which says, sir, I have not completed my previous assignment. What is the solution for that? Now, if you've not completed an assignment, I don't see any reason why, how I can help you. I mean, if you've not completed, you've not completed. So the solution will become available. See, the point is this, that if you don't do the assignment, what will happen? As far as we are concerned, or the NPTEL is concerned, the policy seems to be that I think out of 8 assignments, the best 6 will be counted. So you really don't get affected by the fact that you've not completed a single assignment. So even if you get a 0 in one assignment, and that's what will probably happen, that if you don't submit the assignment, that assignment will be graded to a 0 for you. Now, if it gets graded to a 0, that 0 will be eliminated as far as counting that assignment is concerned towards your overall performance. That's all that I can say, but obviously you please understand that once the assignment solution has been uploaded, then we cannot accept any further submissions. So that is our constraint. So I wish you all the best, and I cannot really help you on this. Okay. Now let me see. Then there is a question from Manish Kumar Gala, which says that I'm a student of NIT KKR Civil Engineering third year. Is there an opportunity for doing internships for 6 months program under any construction project? Is under your opinions, and if it is possible, then how to get it? Now I don't see how I can help you, Manish, because unfortunately I cannot help you get a internship. I mean, that's something between you and a construction company or wherever you want to do an internship. I can only wish you all the best in your endeavors. I don't see how I can help you. What you could do is through your department, faculty colleagues, you can approach these people in the neighborhood or somewhere else and try to see whatever best you can do. Now there's another question, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, which is from Ankush Bharadwaj, which says, which network diagram is preferred from AON or AOA? Now I really don't know how to answer this question either. I mean, it depends on whatever you want. I mean, people can use whichever it is. You have to see what purpose it serves. If it serves, the purpose of the diagram is to be able to, let me see if I can remove all this and then answer this question. What happened? Why can't I? Yes. So one method of representing an activity, let's say the start of an activity is here. It takes so much time to do and it ends here. Now this is an activity A. And then there is an activity B, which, well, we can say that the end of this coincides with the start of this, and B goes on like this and ends here. This is the end of B, this is the end of A, this is start of B, start of A. Now one way of looking at it is that you say that, okay, I'm going to do activity A and then I'll do activity B. The other way of doing it is you say that, okay, this is what I'll do. This is my activity A and this is my activity B. And these are my nodes. I mean, I can number them 1, 2, 3 or something like that. And we'll say that 1, 2 is activity A, 2, 3 is activity B. It depends exactly and only on the way you want to handle it. Now, the problem that I can immediately foresee is that this kind of a representation may not be very useful if you want to convert it into a program. Whereas a representation like this, where you're talking 1, 2, 2, 3, you put a duration here that A will take 7 days, B will take 10 days. You can assign that an activity Aij or an activity A which you represent as Ij. In this case, I is 1, this is 2. In the case of B, it is 2 and 3. And the fact that 2 is common to it also signifies that end of one corresponds to the start of the other. This kind of a representation, yes, it helps you more in terms of being able to write programs with it, try to kind of carry out operations on it, arithmetic operations, which are an important part of our planning and scheduling activity. So to that extent, yes, this is a more powerful tool, except that this representation also has its own merits, and one must try to figure out what they want. I mean, there is nothing better or worse. I mean, it depends on what you want from that particular representation. Okay, so with let me go to the next one, which is that, is it good to learn management software for doing work? Now, this is a question which is very difficult to answer. Again, it's like saying that when you were students, you are still students, a lot of you are still in college. When you are students in school, you were taught A, B, C, D, and so on, and people try to tell you how should A be written. I mean, somebody will tell you that A should be written with first stroke here, this is stroke, and this is stroke. And somebody will say B should be written like this, and you will say, well, can't I write A like this? So this kind of thing goes on in school, right? Now, nobody teaches you Microsoft Word. Nobody teaches you a typewriter. Now, as you grow older, you say, well, I have understood this writing A, B, C, D. Now, please tell me a method by which I can write something faster, which I can work on. So, a software is precisely that kind of a thing. This question is from Dhruv, so I'm not answering Dhruv directly, but I'm also making a point for the others. So I'm making a point for the others that as far as I'm concerned in this course, I would say that we will not use softwares. And I have not used softwares. I've meant to solve any problem. But we have tried to go first principles. And if it is first principles, obviously the problems that we can solve and we have tried to solve are very simple. They are illustrative in nature. They are schematic. I mean, you go to the kind of, I think we did a boundary wall problem with you. That's a very simple problem. I mean, and probably nobody makes a boundary wall that way actually. But having said that, the illustrative example is a boundary wall. And that is where we wanted to show you things like estimation, things like activities being broken up into one place, one activity following another activity, and so on and so forth. So, of course, it's a good idea to learn management softwares. And in fact, if you go to the companies, they will probably be using management softwares. And the point is that in order that you are able to use those softwares, you should know the principle on which those softwares have been built. So it's like saying that, should I do structural analysis and if I'm doing structural analysis, should I do analysis using an analysis software? My answer would be no. If it's a classroom exercise, try to do it first principles. It's like trying to say that if I were to ask you to multiply 178 by 187, you can say that, well, I'm going to use a calculator to do it. But to a class 6 or a class 7 student, I'll say, no calculators are allowed. You go first principles and do this calculation. So that is my answer to you. I hope that is amply clear. You please figure out what you want to do. As far as I'm concerned, education of software is not the intent. You have to pick up those softwares on your own. And there may be some expert courses or some crash courses. Read the software manual and do it. I don't think we should get involved in it in an academic environment. Okay. Now there's a question from Sudarshan, which says, it's a faculty member somewhere. Sudarshan, I think we are online. I don't know whether you're watching or not. You could probably let me know where you work. Okay, so while we read the question and try to answer this. In construction project, we need various trades of workers at various stages of the work. Further, these workers are not engaged on daily wages. Teams work on labor rate contract. This system is prevailing to get maximum production at known cost. How to incorporate this system into resource management? If contractors not performing to required speed but deputed resources like equipment and shuttering in sufficient quantity other than manpower, what is the solution? How to manage? Now, I am not sure whether I can answer this question because this will take me far away from wherever we are as far as this course is concerned, because this course, Sudarshan, is basically to the third year or fourth year students where I try to explain to them the whole idea that there are different kinds of resources, there are different kinds of ways of handling them, whether you're handling masons yourself or you're handling it through a contractor. Now, I do not want to get involved in a discussion today and in this, as part of this course, on things like teamwork on labor rate contract, because this requires a little bit of different discussion, which I don't want to get involved with directly. The whole foundation is not built for getting into that kind of a treatment. So we'll leave this question at that. Maybe at some other point in time, we'll try to look at this question.
So camera, can we transition, sir. Right now, only the written part is visible, sir.
Oh, I see. We have to get back to that. Okay, so
Yes.
okay, so then
Right,
you
sir.
can see me back in action. So we'll go back to the board, one of these, very quickly. All right. So now let me see the question from. There is a question from Rajarshi Basu, which says, and that's a question from a professional. Rajarshi, if you're, I don't know whether you're one of those people who's watching this session. I'd like to know where you're working. What your question says is that what will be the bend allowance for rebars of diameter 32, 36 and of FE 500? Now, the value of K is not clearly mentioned in IS 2502 for HYST bars. Also, kindly explain the concept of hook allowance in case of stirrups of 10 mm and 8 mm diameter while calculating the cut length of a stirrup. Now, this question again, Rajarshi, will take me a little away from the level at which we have handled the questions or the kind of subject in this particular course. So, having said that, now let me see what I can do for you. What I can do for you is to explain to you the concept of a cut length. Okay. Now, and leave a lot of it to the you to figure out a little later whenever you have the time. And it's nice that you are referring to IS 2502, which tells me that, well, you are actually doing a lot of reading, and as a professional you had better do that. I mean, at the end of it, I'm sure in our classroom exercise we don't have the students open 2502 because this is a code, or this is a IS specification or a code which is extremely practice oriented. Okay, so what I would at least do in a class if I were teaching this course, which is this particular question probably refers to RC design. If I was doing RC design and I was to talk to the students, I would tell them the following. The principle involved is just this. If I have a straight bar here and I bend it around this roller, we bring it here, which means that we create a bar which now looks like this. So this is the bent portion, and these are the portions which are still straight. The issue really is that, okay, what should be this radius of the roller about which you are bending? Should this radius be a function of this dimension, which is the dimension of the bar, that is the diameter of the bar? These are the questions that you have to be able to answer, that, okay, should the roller radius be related to the diameter of the radius? That's one question. The second question is that if I want a shape like this, which in the case of a stirrup, since you raised the question of a stirrup, it looks like this. So if you want a stirrup which should look like this, finally, what should be the straight length that you take, so that you bend it once and then you bend it another time and you bend it a third time and you bend the fourth time, whatever you do, so that you get these things in order. So finally you can look at this shape in a straightened form and do all that kind of jugglery. The point is that how do you calculate the cut length? That's where we were, right? So now there are different ways of looking at this problem. One way of looking at it is that if I were to say that, okay, let me measure only the internal dimensions involved. So there is, let's say, this is my internal dimension called yi, which is internal, and this dimension here, this is my xi. These are the internal dimensions. I can do the same thing with external dimensions, where I say that, okay, this is my y external and this is my x external. I can do a third thing here, which says that okay, there is a center line both ways, and I can call this as my y center line, and this is my x center line. Now, what is the original length of the bar? Is it x I plus yi? Is it xe plus ye, or is it xc plus yc? Now, or it's something different. So that is where the question will be that okay, one thing you can say is that well, the center line dimension cannot change. Therefore, if you say that this is the truth, then how are these two different from this? That's what's the first question that you need to resolve. The second question that you need to resolve is that what happens to the relationship between this radius here and this diameter here. I would like you to think that if I have a very small diameter here and a very large diameter bar, and I want to bend it around here, right? So if I'm trying to bend a very large diameter bar about a very small diameter roller, just think about it that okay, how much is the difference between this length here versus this length here on the outside and this center line that you have? What is the implication of this as far as we are concerned? Because this bar initially was straight and is being bent, so it is being bent like this, so there is a roller which is being placed here. So this face of the bar, the fibers on the outside of the bar, they are being stretched and are going to have a lot of tensile strains. Similarly, the fibers on the inside of it, which are in contact with the roller, they will be all compressed. Now, I'm leaving it to you to do this exercise if you make certain assumptions that okay, the length of the center line doesn't change, the length of the, and then if the length of the center line doesn't change, how much is the strain? Because we know that strain is nothing but delta L upon L. So the change in length with respect to center line to the center line. Try to find out how much is the tensile strain in these bars and how is it related to this R and this D. Okay, once you do that, then the next step, which is the last step in our understanding, is to see that okay, we have the stress strain curve of mild steel or your HYSD or whatever it is, and then you try to find out that okay, this guy tells us that at this level of strain, this is the level of stress, or this is the level of strain, this is the level of stress. Now, what we are doing here in this kind of bending of bars is that we must first understand whether these amounts of tensile strains are in this region, very small strains, or they are in this region, which is very large strains, and so on. Once you are able to do that calculation based on the geometry that we discussed just now, you will know that that is the relationship which tells us, that is the thought process which tells us that this diameter and this radius had better be related. If we go for larger diameter bars, we had better be using a larger minimum roller diameter. That is the kind of principle that we're talking about. So I think that is where I'll leave it. I've gone through the principle of it. As far as IS 2502 is concerned, yes, it tells you how to calculate the cut lengths for stirrups and so on based on internal dimensions. There are tables which tell you how to do it with external dimensions given to you and so on. So I think you can take it up from there and move forward. Another thing which that code particularly tells us is that, okay, if I have a 180-degree bend like this, what should be the minimum value here? It goes from here to here, and there is a strange kind of a diagram which looks like this. This dimension is given to you, this dimension, this dimension is given to you, and so on. Now, I'm not getting involved with the discussion where why should there be a minimum like this? Yes, there is a reason for that, and I'm not getting into that discussion at all. Okay. So Rajarshi, I think I've kind of answered this question to some extent. The rest of it you'll have to figure out on your own because there are so many other things which we need to see. There is a question from Pawan which says that can you discuss the future construction management course and suggest me some universities regarding MS program? Now, I don't know what you want to say, Pawan. If you want to ask me whether I'm going to offer another course on construction management with which uses this as a basis, I'm not so sure. I can try to do that, but then you'll have to come and tell me that, okay, these are the kind of topics which you would like to cover more in depth, because as you realize that there is whole gamut of courses, gamut of areas more or less as far as construction management is concerned. And in this course, we have only tried to touch the tip of the iceberg and tried to expose you to the different modules or different areas which a construction manager must know. So I really do not know. As far as the universities are concerned, I'm sorry, I cannot help you with that. I'm not so sure too many universities in India offer major courses in construction management. There are a few universities. IIT Delhi offers something. NICMAR has a very strong construction management kind of a program. But don't quote me on that, because obviously I'm not saying that other universities do not have. You'll have to kind of do some Google search or whatever it is to find out which universities offer it outside, what's the situation, and so on. Okay. Now there is another question from Rajarshi, which is exactly the same, which I guess is the same person who we were talking to just now. And that question says how to calculate the budget of a project. Now, I really do not know how to answer this question also, and you will realize that I'm not answering too many questions. I'm just telling you that you please do your own homework properly and come back and continue on the course. So as far as the budget of a project is concerned, Rajesh, it's a very difficult one, because if you are interested in a preliminary estimate, then there are different ways of doing it. If you want to do a detailed estimate, different ways of doing it. So these are kind of off-the-cuff answers, and we have not got into the budgeting exercise. We have not tried to figure out exactly how to go about calculating the cost of a project. We left it at that yes, if you want to do a preliminary estimate, it will require a different kind of input. For example, if you were to do a road project, then a preliminary estimate can be based on the kilometers involved. It could be based on the terrain involved. It could be based on the number of bridges which will go. In fact, if you want to go into greater detail, somebody will say, okay, it's not only the length of the road, but also the number of lanes. So how many lane kilometers are involved? If you want to do a multi-story building construction, you can say, okay, what is the floor area involved? Okay, per square meter of floor area. Then somebody will say, okay, is it the same thing for a hospital versus a mall versus a residential building? And you will say, no, it's not the same. Then somebody will else, and so on. So that kind of a story becomes more and more complicated. So the more data you have, that okay, somebody says that okay, out of the 100 hospitals which were built, this was the per square meter of cost that came down to. Of the hundreds of kilometers of roads that were built using bitumen or rigid pavement, whatever it was, this was the cost. So you can arrive at a realistic, more dependable perhaps number as far as the estimate is concerned. And the same thing goes to the detailed estimate. I mean, once you go to, but the detailed estimate can be prepared only after you have the drawings. You have exactly the kind of quantities of different items of work that are involved. So that's the way I'll try to look at it and leave the question at that. With the comment that at the end of it, it is the quantity of the work and the rate at which you're operating. Excavation has a certain rate and a certain quantity, so you'll have a cost as far as excavation is concerned. The same thing can be talked about for brickwork, for concrete, for any item altogether, any item at all. Okay, so I'll leave these questions with this. So now let me try to go to the questions which are here with me on the screen, which says that There is a question by Vikas Kulkarni, which says that percentage of numerical solve type questions in the exam, since they take time to solve with the calculator, especially online calculator. I don't know whether I can give you the numbers because I really don't remember how many questions are there of the numerical variety. And I understand that yes, you will take time from because you'll be using an online calculator and you're not allowed to carry scientific calculators with you, and which you may be more familiar with. So that has been accounted for. The questions will be reasonably straightforward, and you should be able to do them in time. And as far as the actual percentage of numerical solve type questions, I'm not so sure. I mean, it'll probably be around 50% or something like that. But I think if at all I have to give you a more realistic estimate, probably somewhere down the line in the forum, we'll probably just post a small clarification on that. Okay. Now then there is a question by Gaurav which says, sir, yes sir, please allow us to bring our own calculator. Now I don't think the NPTEL policy allows you to bring in your calculators, and I really don't know whether I can help you with that. See, those are half of it is an administrative kind of a matter, and I'm not sure whether I can help you with that at all. Okay. So no, on the face of it, the answer remains no. You are not allowed to bring your calculators, and I cannot really do that. And I cannot even appeal to NPTEL to allow you to bring your calculators. All right. So now then there is a question by Govind. Govind says that I need Primavera live learning video of planning engineering. Now I don't, you can have any, I'm glad that you're suggesting that you need that kind of a resource, but I'll be, which I cannot offer you right now, but I'm sure if it should be available, and you'll probably need to do your own search to do that, to figure it out. Okay, now let me see what Jiten says. Jiten Kushwaha says, I have a question that if overall site manager come under regional administration. Now I'm not sure where you are coming from, Jiten, but if you are coming in from the point of view of regulation, I mean, if you're operating a site, let's say in UP or Madhya Pradesh or something like that, and you're trying to ask me whether the site manager comes under the jurisdiction of that state, the answer obviously is yes. Because whatever goes on at the site is subject to certain laws of land. So whether if you're working in India, there are certain laws of Indian laws which will apply. If you're working in Japan or Singapore or US, some laws of that country will apply. And what you are calling the regional administration is basically a setup or an administrative setup which has been put in place by that society to ensure that the rules and regulations of that society are followed in that region. So to that extent, the answer is obviously yes. So, and it is relevant to us from the point of view of quality also, because if you're working in different places which have different quality standards, you have to make sure that they conform to different standards. Similarly for safety, I mean, if there are regional, even in India, you have the labor officers, the labor office and the labor commissioner and so on, which handles some of these accidents related stuff. So yes, of course, you're required to submit periodic reports and so on. So yes, the answer in a nutshell is that yes, you cannot, the site engineer or the site manager cannot say that he or she is above the regional administration as far as administrative control is concerned. As far as technical control is concerned, that matter is slightly different. You have to be clear that yes, as far as the technical content is concerned, you're not bound by regional constraints. But even there, the answer is actually a very messy answer. For example, if you're building an tall tower, or you're creating a building in the neighborhood of an airport, there are restrictions which will tell you that you cannot make a building which is higher than that. So even if you want to do it, number one, your design should not be cleared. It should not be approved for construction. But if by oversight it has been done, Somebody can come and tell you that, well, you may require a height of 30 meters, but we cannot permit you to have a height more than 20 meters as far as this particular construction is concerned. So yes, that is how the interplay or the interaction of administration happens as far as the execution of work at site is concerned. Okay, so now there is a question which is from Vikas, or it's not a question, it says, Vikas says that please give least solve type numerical questions in the exam. I mean, I wish we were talking before I set the paper, because now the paper is already gone as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think I can do much about it, but I will keep your advice in mind that, oh, was it your question that it takes a lot of time to solve these questions? Yes, you had said that it takes so much time, and therefore you are probably saying that you please keep it at a minimum. I understand that thing, and I think we will not go overboard, okay? So NPTEL can provide us live examples of Primavera. I can convey to NPTEL that, okay, please try to see who can do a Primavera kind of a small course on Primavera. I mean, it's going back to my previous thought that, okay, if you want to use ABCD is what I would like to teach you as far as the class is concerned, but if you want to use NPTEL to offer you a course on Microsoft Word or some such software, yes, there can be a course which can be there, but that course, you know what it will teach? It will teach you Control-C, Control-V. It will teach you how to underline, how to format on the left-hand column, how to format on the right-hand column. Those things are something which I think you guys have to figure out on your own with the help of the help part of that particular software. I mean, if you know what you want to do, you should be able to manage it. I mean, I could go give the same example with respect to the Excel sheet, okay? So let's get back to some other things which we have. See, what Gaurav says is that I have a doubt on assignment 4, question 8. Selection is based on lower or higher in PV. I think this is a very specific question. I think I'll rather do it on the forum where we'll look at this question and we'll answer that your doubt, Gaurav. Then we go to Vikas again, which says that only critical activities are crashed. Crashing non-critical activities will not reduce the project duration since they have float. I am not sure what this Vikas wants to say, because at the end of it, what you're saying, Vikas, is right, because only critical activities can be crashed. See, why are we trying to crash? We are trying to crash because we want to reduce the duration of the project. And the project duration is related to, or it's related, okay, it is related to the critical activities. So if I want to reduce the duration of the project, I must crash the critical activities. Non-critical activities may become critical if we keep crashing the critical activities beyond a certain point. So those activities also become critical. So then the principle still remains that the critical activities govern the length of the project or the duration of the project. And that is the whole principle. So I think what you're saying is right. I think I'll leave the answer question to that. And I think that is more or less what it is. I think, have we answered everything? You can hear, yes, so then I cannot, then 15th. Oh, let me see, where are we? Only critical activities are correct. Okay, so okay, that's what. So where Vikas says this now, Nandi Pati is there. See, good evening, Nandi. That's fine. Now we go down here. Theoretical cut length is more than the actual required. What is the need to consider this? Needed to consider for reconciliation. What is it that we need to consider for reconciliation? Now, see, you are asking me questions which are extremely site type questions, and I'm not really a great site person. I have a little bit of experience with site, but what should be used for reconciliation or should not be used for reconciliation, that's something which your contract document has to say. Okay, how will we do this? And if it does not say that, then you have to resolve it between the parties involved. Okay. So then, thanks for addressing my question. Thanks for did the sir say 15% or 50%? I think, well, that this must be related to the question on how much is the percentage of numerical questions. I did not say 15, I said 50. 15 would be too low, Jitin. Because I think we'll have to have a little larger number of questions, given at least the kind of question, the modules that we are covering. We are not, we have covered a lot of areas where numbers are important, and we must be able to work out those numbers. All right, so it's 50, and in fact, Gaurav has corrected you. It's not 15, it is 50. So that's huge. What is huge and what's not huge, I'll leave that discussion apart. Okay, now what you're saying, Abhinav has an interesting point. He says, what would you suggest should be the amount for contingency in terms of percentage while budgeting for capital projects? Now, this is again one of those extremely difficult questions to answer, at least for this particular course. Okay, the principle here is that why should we have contingency expenses? What is roughly the amount of contingent expenditure that you want to take? Now you are kind of adding to it that, well, whether it is capital projects and so on, what should be the contingencies? I would not like to answer this. I would rather say that you please try to approach some of these construction companies and try to find out if they're willing to share at least some information with you on what is the kind of amounts of contingency. I'm not giving you that answer also. Maybe somewhere down the line in a couple of weeks, if I get some reliable information, I'll probably share it with you on the forum. Okay. So that is what Abhinav said. And now that Rajesh says, sir, suppose I have a main beam of 800 depth and a secondary beam of 800 depth, what should the shuttering quantity in the junction be deducted? Now, see, please understand something. Whether a particular thing should be done or should not be done, it has two connotations. It's like saying that, okay, let me try to explain it to you once again, taking a very simple example, so which will enable me to not answer this question somehow. So you can see that I'm trying to find out ways and means of not answering your questions directly. See, suppose you were to tell me that, okay, I have a beam which is an L-shaped beam like this, and I want to calculate the quantity of the concrete in this beam. Now, obviously, it depends on if I take this beam as beam 1 and this beam as beam 2, and this is how I'm trying to calculate. There's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is that I consider it like this, that, okay, my beam 1 extends like this, my beam 2 extends like this, and that's how we do it. The third thing could be use a center line method, try to find out the length and do it. Now, if I take a different view and say that I am going to calculate the quantity where this corner is going to get counted twice. That is, I consider this side once and then this side. So obviously this corner is getting counted twice. We need to reduce that. However, this reduction will help. Now, how much is the quantity involved? And what is the rigor at which you're carrying out this exercise? Now, if you are carrying out the exercise as a preliminary exercise to find out how much concrete is involved, I really couldn't care less whether you deduct this or you don't deduct it. But if you come to a next level where you really want to find out actually how much of concrete is really involved, you will do that. As far as billing is concerned, it will have to be again a part of your contract document that as far as possible deductions should be made for such and such things. So if you go back to some of these billing provisions, you will find that, okay, all openings in a wall, are they deducted? No. What it says is that if the openings are smaller than a certain size, you can ignore those as far as the billing for that particular quantity is concerned. So it's a little bit of a contractual issue, it's a bit of a legal issue, and please kind of resolve it at that level. Okay. Now let me see what happens is that Vikas says thank you, and I can see Murli, who's helping with this session, saying that you please accelerate this whole process. I think we've been talking to you for about 45 minutes now. I think we'd like to close this session in a couple of minutes. Let me see what are the couple of questions remaining. Now, Jiten says, please give me some examples of unsafe condition and unsafe act. I do not know. The safety module is out? That means if this question is coming up, that means you're looking at the safety module. I don't know what examples I've given you in my in the lecture. So, but the principle of it is the following. An unsafe act is something which can be attributed directly to a person who did that act. Whereas an unsafe condition is prevailing at a site, at a place. Of course, somebody created that unsafe condition, and therefore that person is responsible for having created that thing. To that extent, it was an unsafe, it was a bad practice on his part to have done that, but it affected somebody else. Now, let me give you an example. If there is a place where somebody just before he was leaving spilled some oil. The shift closes at 5 o'clock. Somebody spilled some oil and thought that, well, nobody is going to come here in the evening. Let me go away and I'm going to come and clean it tomorrow. He locks up that place or does not lock up that place, whatever it is, that place remains slippery. And for some reason, somebody comes in at night and slips. And there's an accident and that person is injured and so on. Now, do you think the person A who spilled the oil in the first place, and then there's the person B who walked in there and slipped because oil had been spilled? Now, what is the situation? What is the analysis here? Person A did an act of not cleaning the oil, and therefore he created a condition so that person B, who did not do an unsafe act, walking there is not an unsafe act. I mean, he had to go there and therefore he did it. So that was not an unsafe act. Whereas if he had not wearing as another example, if you're not wearing a helmet and you're driving the scooter or motorcycle or whatever it is, and there you meet with an injury, you are actually committing an unsafe act. You are inviting trouble. You are saying that you are committing an act, and if the injury follows to you, that injury is arising out of an unsafe act on part of the victim, on part of the person who met with that accident. Whereas an unsafe condition is something which somebody allowed it. I mean, going back to that example where the oil had been spilled and the person comes in later and falls, there is a site management. If the site management had enforced rules which said that if you spill oil or create an unsafe condition because of something, you please make sure that that condition is rectified immediately. Or you take certain action. You put a board there showing that oil has been spilled here, please do not come here, and so on. So that is the kind of difference which we can talk about as far as unsafe acts and unsafe conditions is concerned. Okay. So now let me see, Nantipati says that could you please upload all the material of all the weeks? It will be helpful for our revision before the exam. And now this is something which I don't do directly. I'll have to request the NPTEL team to do what they need to do as far as policy is concerned. I mean, at the end of it, if the material has been taken down, and that's what it is. I mean, so I'll leave your request with the NPTEL team to.
Actually, in the NPTEL website, our course is already available. If they want, they can access it from there also, sir.
So I think we'll be able to resolve this matter. The material is available somewhere, and we'll make sure that it's available. So that's not a big issue. Okay, and I really wish you well. I mean, as far as the exam is concerned, you're taking it very seriously. Now, Jiten has a question, but sir, shift was finished, the person B gone there after the shift time. Yes. Now, Jiten, you are right. Jiten, are you working somewhere or you are a student? Let me see if in this place it doesn't say what it is. See, at the site, we are talking of a construction site or any such. That should come under unsafe condition. I don't know what you want to say. You are saying that the shift has finished, but there can be a reason why somebody else has still to go there. So unless there is a provision that, well, nobody is going to enter that place, the entry has not been stopped. Well, Jiten says, I'm a student. Yes, then it's a learning experience for you. By end of shift does not mean that the work has stopped. One may have to go there for any reason whatsoever. I mean, there can be a reason for, there can be a fire, there can be any kind of an issue because of which somebody else will have to access the site at night. Somebody will say, please go there and check whether this has been done or not. So one has to make sure that those conditions are avoided, where somebody who enters the place as if things are normal meets with an accident. Okay. So I think that is what the discussion is. I don't see any other comments coming in. Murli, I think we can wind up. Okay. So that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. We were talking to you for about 50 minutes. We started about 6:30. Now it's about 7:20 here. So you can. I hope this was useful to you, and I look forward to having you appear in the exam or whatever it is. If you've chosen to do that, I think the last date for registration in the exam is over, right? So whatever it is. So I wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye bye.
We'll just end this.